Max Verstappen had a strong reaction to the penalty handed to him by the FIA stewards during the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The four-time world champion clearly showed his frustration, and it appears he isn't concerned about any potential consequences that may follow. Verstappen's reaction was supported by Red Bull, especially with Christian Horner bringing forward media images of the crash. The big question now is whether Red Bull will recover quickly for the next race in Miami. And more. Importantly, will the FIA take further action regarding Verstappen's conduct? The situation at the Jeddah circuit got intense in Turn 1, as Verstappen found himself under pressure from McLaren's Oscar Piastri. Piastri's better launch off the line allowed him to gain an advantage into the corner. Verstappen, realizing he couldn't make the corner, let off the brakes and ran wide, opting to keep his position. He was fully aware of the risks, but had no choice but to continue pushing forward. Verstappen's perspective on the matter? He claimed that the media often misrepresents situations like this, which is why he preferred to keep his thoughts to himself. When discussing the incident further, Verstappen made it clear that he couldn't openly share his opinions without facing repercussions. He explained, "The problem is that I can't speak freely because I might end up with another penalty. It's better to stay silent. The situation unfolded quickly, and anything I say could get me into trouble." Verstappen also mentioned how the public's reaction, especially on social media, often distorts the truth, which makes him more cautious about speaking out. He believes that his words could be taken out of context and misinterpreted, so it's safer for him to remain quiet. The stewards originally planned to hand Verstappen a 10-second penalty for the incident, similar to the penalty given to Lawson later in the race after a racing incident with Jack Doohan. However, the fact that it was the opening lap of the race played a role in the stewards' final decision. Red Bull, however, was far from happy with the outcome. Was the penalty justified? While Verstappen's actions were far from perfect, he likely would have made a similar move if he were in Piastri's position. The history of Verstappen's racing, especially when pressured, suggests that he has been involved in similar situations before. Looking back at Verstappen's history, we don't need much proof to see that he's made similar moves in the past, especially under pressure. The 2021 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix restart is a prime example, where Verstappen pushed aggressively to claim the racing line, even if it meant running off the track. He's known for his bold defensive driving and, as expected, Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, backed his driver. Horner presented pictures from the media to support Verstappen's case, firmly believing the FIA had made the wrong call. Horner didn't mince words when discussing the penalty, labeling it as overly harsh. He explained, "We didn't give up the position because we didn't believe Max had done anything wrong. If you look at the apex, it's clear that Max was ahead." The rules of engagement were discussed, and this was a marginal call. Horner also noted that Red Bull was willing to protest the decision, although he acknowledged that the stewards were unlikely to change their stance. The onboard footage, which wasn't available at the time, might have shed more light on the situation. Verstappen, for his part, has kept his thoughts to himself, knowing that any harsh criticism of the FIA could lead to an even harsher penalty. During the team radio, he was heard expressing his frustration using strong language when he was informed of the 5-second penalty. Despite this, the inconsistency in how the stewards handled track limit violations raised eyebrows. Verstappen received a warning about track limits at Turn 1, despite the fact that he had been pushed wide by Piastri earlier in the same corner. This inconsistency was also seen in Bahrain, where another driver, Antonelli, experienced the same issue but was only given a warning. While Verstappen did serve the 5-second penalty, it didn't seem to affect his performance as much as one might expect. Even with the penalty, he still had clear air in front of him and was able to maintain his pace. Piastri, in particular, found it difficult to keep up with Verstappen due to the dirty air created by the Red Bull. This situation led some to question whether the rules need to be adjusted. After all, a 5-second penalty didn't seem to harm Verstappen's position much, and it would likely have been even less of a factor if another driver like Piastri or Norris had been ahead instead. This brings up an interesting point. If a penalty like this only costs a driver 5 seconds, it's worth considering how much of an impact it really has. Verstappen still had a competitive advantage even with the penalty, but it would have been an entirely different situation if the tables were turned, and it was someone else in the lead. For example, if Piastri or Norris had been the ones to receive the penalty, it could have been neutralized in just a few laps, making it almost irrelevant. Clearly, the FIA's approach to penalties might need to be re-evaluated, especially when it comes to track limit violations and the consistency of rulings. Helmut Marko, Red Bull's advisor, also weighed in, drawing comparisons to incidents in other racing series, such as Formula 2, where similar situations resulted in only warnings or reprimands for the drivers involved. Marko expressed his belief that the 5-second penalty was too severe, considering that Verstappen had been pushed off the track by Piastri. According to Marko, this was simply a racing incident, and a penalty wasn't warranted. He pointed out that Max's speed and tire wear were both in good shape, and overtaking in Jeddah is notoriously difficult. Marko also highlighted how crucial the start of the race was for Red Bull. "We lost the race at the start," he said. He pointed out that Verstappen had nowhere to go when the incident with Piastri happened. In other racing series like Formula 2, drivers in similar situations were often given just warnings, not penalties. Marko felt that the 5-second penalty was excessive, and that it was more of a racing incident than something that warranted a punishment. Despite the setback, Marko was still confident in Verstappen's performance, noting that, without the penalty, Max could have been much closer to Piastri after the pit stops, potentially even ahead of him. However, Marko didn't downplay the challenge that McLaren presented, particularly with their performance on the hard compound tire. McLaren's pace, combined with the penalty Verstappen received, made it harder for him to close the gap to Piastri. Marko acknowledged that McLaren's tire strategy was strong, and without the 5-second penalty, Red Bull might have had a better chance at challenging for the win. Still, despite the difficulties, Marko's belief in Verstappen and the team's capabilities remained firm. One key takeaway from the race was the difference in racing styles between Piastri and Norris. Marko pointed out that Piastri, unlike Norris, was not afraid to fight for his position on the track. Piastri's overtakes showed confidence and precision, especially the one on Hamilton, where he used the hard tires to his advantage. The way Piastri was able to pull off late-breaking moves, like the one in Azerbaijan last year, revealed just how comfortable and aggressive he's become in his third year of F1. Verstappen, while complimentary of Piastri's talent, was quick to point out that he was still learning and maturing, something he himself had done in the past with the help of his family and team. Verstappen showed respect for his rival's skill, noting that Piastri has learned to manage the pressure of being in the spotlight, delivering solid results with minimal mistakes. He also acknowledged how important it is for a driver to remain calm and consistent, traits that Piastri has been showing more of with every race. Verstappen's comments highlighted how fierce the competition in F1 is, especially with the rise of younger talent like Piastri, who's already starting to show his potential in challenging for wins. As the season progresses, it's clear that the rivalry between Verstappen and Piastri is one to watch closely. With both drivers demonstrating remarkable skill and determination, this championship battle could go down to the wire. Verstappen's dominance and experience will undoubtedly keep him in the mix for the title, but Piastri's calm approach and growing confidence make him a formidable contender. It's going to be an exciting season ahead, and with the tension between these two, we can expect plenty of thrilling moments on track. For Red Bull, the task now is to improve their car further with the upcoming upgrades and ensure that Verstappen has the tools he needs to continue fighting for wins. But with teams like McLaren showing their strength, it's clear that Verstappen will have to work harder than ever to defend his championship. So, what do you think? Does Verstappen have a valid reason to be upset with the penalty, or was it a fair call by the stewards? And with Piastri's rising star, could we see a new challenger emerge in the battle for the 2025 title? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to check out the video appearing on your screen right now for more F1 updates.